Patricia Richardson, 74, is now speaking out about her time on Home Improvement and the people she truly detested. Fans believed they were viewing The Perfect Family, but the reality was different behind the scenes. Her male co-star earned twice as much as she did. He was named a producer. She received nothing. She had been smiling for 8 years. She is now revealing everything though. The money conflicts, the stunning on-set conduct, and the true reason she left the spotlight. You won't be able to speak once she confessed who she really detested. On February 23, 1951, Patricia Richardson was born in Bethesda, Maryland, entering a world that is characterized by rigorous discipline and ongoing change. Lawrence Baxter Richardson, her father, was not your typical military man. After World War II, he became a fighter pilot and even worked as a test pilot. He had previously been a sub-commander at the Naval Academy. His life revolved on accuracy and bravery, therefore Patricia's life revolved around constant movement. Patricia packed and unpacked more times than most children would ever do by the time she graduated from school. A new area, and new pals every 2 years. For a kid of the Navy, that was life. However, it molded her rather than shattering her. She became smart, flexible, and quick to adapt as a result, abilities that subsequently benefited her on screen and on stage. Her schooling was equally disorganized. She alternated between Texas and Maryland's most exclusive private schools. However, once she arrived to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, things started to calm down. She at last discovered her groove there. After graduating from acting school in 1972, she encountered individuals that would influence her destiny, such as Pulitzer Prize-winning Beth Henley and Stephen Tobolowsky, who would unpredictably support her career years later. Patricia threw herself into acting at SMU. She challenged herself to develop by taking on challenging parts in dramatic productions. Patricia took full advantage of the theatrical program's encouragement of audacity and creativity. It was more than simply a performance. It was about exploring, trying new things, and getting ready for something more significant. She didn't move to New York or Los Angeles right away after graduating. She chose to remain in Dallas and work in dinner theater instead. Although it wasn't flashy, it covered expenses. More significantly, it provided her with hundreds of opportunities to hone her skills. She gradually saved money by performing in over 200 concerts before moving to New York in 1974. Richardson had no clue that her life would alter forever when she entered that September 15, 1974, audition in New York City. She faced the renowned director Arthur Lawrence at the age of 23, her nerves jangling and her heart full of hope. What followed was virtually unprecedented. He did more than simply cast her. There, he gave her an equity card. It takes years for most performers to earn that card. For Richardson, it was the first day. She knew she belonged after that one time. It urged the theater industry to listen. However, neither recognition nor cheers followed. She served as Gypsy's understudy for a whole year. She practiced her routines, committed lines to memory, and waited silently in the wings each night, ready but never calling. It's possible that some actors have lost it. She didn't, rather she absorbed everything. She gained strength without speaking on stage, mastered the beat of a Broadway production from backstage, and studied Angela Lansbury from the shadows. Being prepared, even when no one is looking, was one of the most significant things she learned during that quiet year. That perseverance began to pay off in 1982. Richardson was contributing to the creation of programs rather than only appearing in them. She made the role her own when she ascended the stage after Jamie Foster. Both audiences and reviewers took note. Not only did she perform when she entered the Miss Firecracker competition, but she also illuminated the room. These roles weren't repurposed. These characters were new and unique. Richardson had the unique ability to make things come to life in a manner that no one else could. Even off Broadway, she continued to demonstrate her abilities. She had the opportunity to demonstrate the depth of her performances in 1979 with Loose Ends. She was impossible for reviewers to overlook. Then in 1985, she attracted the attention of John Simon, one of the harshest reviewers in the industry, when on Cruise Control. He did more than simply compliment her. She was one of the top performances in New York that year, according to him. They didn't give out recognition like that easily. It indicated that she had come. Then her narrative took an unexpected turn. Ads. Someone in the crowd noticed anything odd following a vibrant performance of Gypsy. Someone who could sell a tale in 30 seconds, not simply a stage actress. She was soon appearing in national advertisements. Household names, infant goods, and fabric softeners. She may earn almost a month's worth of theatrical labor from a single session. Richardson, however, wasn't selling out. It was shrewd. She stayed in theater because of those salaries. She frequently chuckled about it, claiming that she was using laundry soap to finance her theater fantasies. However, the joke was true. Patricia Richardson had no intention of becoming an actress in Hollywood. She gave her all to the New York theater scene for 13 years. She lived in that world. She had no dreams about sitcoms or movies. Despite barely covering the expenses, being on stage provided her a feeling of purpose. She once said that the theatrical habit didn't pay at all, so she performed advertisements on the side to make ends meet. However, all changed in 1984. She received an invitation to appear in Double Trouble, a brand new sitcom. It required her to relocate to Los Angeles, something she didn't want to do. She went anyhow. The show featured twins who were related to one of the most well-known figures in television, Norman Lear. Patricia's unexpected entree into Hollywood's inner circle was made possible by that link. She portrayed Beth McConnell, a kind and intelligent woman who collaborated closely with Donnelly Rhodes's character. The plot suggested romance, and they had a great on-screen chemistry. Her most well-known part will be echoed by this setting years later, although no one realized it at the time. Patricia first believed that her relocation to Los Angeles would only be temporary. However, her perspective changed when she began to receive more TV jobs. She made a significant choice with her spouse, actor Ray Baker. They permanently departed New York. Los Angeles was no longer solely a work trip by the late 1980s. It turned into a residence. Making this decision wasn't simple. It was risky to switch from theater, which had so much artistic significance, to television, which was viewed as more commercial. However, the time was favorable to them. The sitcom industry flourished in the late 1980s. The Cosby Show, Golden Girls, and Cheers were the most popular shows. Patricia ended up at the center of that world. She would later claim that she had switched from performing in New York theater for 13 years to doing sitcoms for 13 years. Her career was completely reinvented, a fresh start. Patricia and Ray were also starting a family at this time. They had 3 children by 1991, twins, Roxanne and Joseph, and a son called Henry. California now had a strong hold on both her personal and professional lives. Patricia starred in 2 short-lived sitcoms that were crucial to her career before she became well-known. She co-starred with Scott Bakula in Eisenhower and Lutz in 1988. Despite the show's brief 13-episode run, she gained considerable screen time. Next came FM, where she portrayed an ex-wife and political analyst at a public radio station. From 1989 to 1990, it was broadcast. Insiders recognized her since both shows were produced by MTM Enterprises, a business with a solid reputation. Despite the fact that neither program was popular, they allowed Patricia to develop. She improved her timing, picked up the sitcom beat, and made important contacts in the business, particularly with producer Alan Burns. She had subtly developed a strong CV by the conclusion of FM, and demonstrated her ability to handle prominent TV parts. Next came house renovation. However, it nearly didn't occur. ABC had a difficulty in 1991. Tim Allen didn't get along with the actress they first cast with him. They phoned Patricia since they needed someone quickly, but it couldn't have come at a worse time. She didn't feel prepared to start working right away because she had recently given birth to twins. Nevertheless, she consented to film the pilot. To assist her, the program made significant concessions. In order to set up cribs for her infants, they provided her with an additional dressing room. In order for the nanny to take the twins home early, they even hired a driver. Patricia took her breast pump to the set and used it in between shots during the 5 days of filming. Although it was difficult, she succeeded. That act of balancing parenthood and a job turned into a recurring issue in her life. Given that Tim Allen had never acted before, nobody anticipated that sparks would ignite when Patricia Richardson first met him. Something connected the instant they read lines together. Even though he was a stand-up comedian transitioning into a sitcom, Tim capitalized on Patricia's enthusiasm since she thought he was humorous. It was quick, easy, and enjoyable. They were completing each other's jokes within days after beginning production on the pilot. They didn't have to connect. It was authentic. In fact, it was so genuine that Tim began to cry at one particularly moving passage. Until the director clarified that Patricia was only acting, he didn't even know why. It was all stated in that instant. There was something unique about this presentation. There was more to that than chemistry. It was equilibrium. The program changed from a boisterous male-centered comedy to something more intelligent, affectionate, and truthful when Patricia played Jill Taylor. She was more than simply the spouse. She was a complete character, witty, intelligent, and unafraid to confront Tim. The show gained depth as a result. Even the creators acknowledged it. The program wouldn't have been successful without her. It obviously did work. It surpassed Seinfeld and Frasier in the ratings by season 3. Every week, more than 34 million people watched. Patricia's ability to give the Taylor family a genuine feel was a major factor. She wasn't just an actor. She contributed to changing the representation of women on film. Patricia gave Jill a voice rather than adopting the worn-out persona of the pestering wife. She reacted to Tim's macho pranks with warmth and humor. She was much more relatable because she wasn't flawless either. She made a strong point about emotional work in relationships when she confronted Tim for purchasing her a Slack birthday present in one episode. And the magic is in it. She portrayed Jill like a genuine person, which is why those sequences worked so well, not because they were flawlessly written. Strong, imperfect, and intelligent. However, her most impactful action may have been unscripted. Something unexpected occurred when Jill returned to school on the show to obtain a master's degree in psychology. Watching, thousands of women felt seen. They sent letters. They submitted an application to the school. Some were so moved by Jill's on-screen performance that they went on to get their own degrees. Stories from women who at last thought it was still possible to pursue their aspirations were poured into the producers. One observer claimed that after seeing Patricia as Jill, she was halfway through her master's degree. That's effect, not simply acting. Patricia received 4 consecutive Emmy nominations, and Hollywood took note. She held her own against well-known figures like Candice Bergen and Helen Hunt. She received 2 Golden Globe nominations as well. Being in that audience demonstrated how far she had carried this persona and this play. Even though she didn't win, she transformed what began as a normal sitcom into something more. And despite all the accolades, cheers, and fan correspondence, one thing remained constant. Patricia Richardson was the driving force for house remodeling. Behind the scenes, Patricia Richardson's tenure on Home Improvement wasn't entirely humorous. Although she was shown to viewers as the intelligent, powerful mother Jill Taylor, her off-screen life revealed a different picture, one that was molded by power struggles, unfair treatment, and silent conflicts she had to face alone. It was evident from the first season that Tim Allen was more important. He had already been promoted to executive consultant before the conclusion of that first year, allowing him to influence the show's development. He soon rose to the position of executive producer. However, Patricia never received producer credit, even though she was the show's female star and a major contributor to its popularity. Not once. Giving her that title, according to the company, may inspire other performers to make similar requests. However, Allen had already been given one. Who, then, were they actually attempting to defend? The compensation disparity also increased as the show progressed. Allen was earning $2 million every episode at the end of the show. Half was provided to Richardson. That meant that while Richardson was supposed to remain compliant and grin, Allen was taking home an additional $25 million in a single season. She wasn't always silent, though. When necessary, she spoke her opinions, particularly on her character. She didn't want Jill to be a voiceless background wife. She advocated for plots that highlighted Jill's independence, strength, and intellect, but there was a cost for that. It wears you out to always have to defend your character. She declined a 9th season despite the allure of the money, in part because of this. She was at her breaking point. When private behavior was brought to light, the situation became even more awkward. In her 2023 biography, Pamela Anderson, who played a minor recurring part in the first few seasons, stated that Tim Allen introduced himself to her on her first day. Although Allen denied it, the accusation raised further questions about the set climate. During filming, Richardson herself recalled another instance in which Allen raised his kilt in front of her. She dismissed it as absurd, and said she was not offended. However, that response says a lot. Since resisting may cost them everything, many women, including Richardson, learned to accept things as they are in a society where they are dismissed as jokes. ABC just wanted one more season of Home Improvement, which was still one of the most popular television programs in 1998. They were prepared to spend a lot of money on it. A $2 million per episode offer was made to Tim Allen, just half Patricia Richardson. Even though she has an equal amount of influence on the show, it amounts to $1 million every episode. She had put in just as much effort, made an appearance in every episode, and contributed to the show's popularity among both men and women. However, she had never earned a third of Allen's income. In spite of Golden Globe and Emmy nominations, Richardson had no intention of simply accepting the money and being silent. She had previously stated that regardless of the remuneration, she didn't want to undertake a 9th season. She thus made one of her own after Allen accepted the offer, but not because she thought it would succeed. She sought an executive producer credit, and the exact same compensation as Allen, $2 million every episode. She was aware that Disney would not pursue it. That was the idea. It was her way of expressing no without using words. It made an unavoidable statement, and was audacious and incisive. ABC had a serious issue all of a sudden. Without Richardson, there would be no Home Improvement. Despite their desire to continue the show, the producers didn't even consider writing her out or replacing her. It was said bluntly by the co-creator, without her the show would not function. The humor and tool jokes weren't the only emotional aspects of the event. She was the focal point, and it was the family. However, her desire was not met by the network. They refused to give her what she was worth, but they were prepared to lose her. Richardson then took a stroll. She forfeited $25 million. With the offer she declined, she would have earned that. However, she seemed unconcerned about the boats and airplanes. She desired to be there for her children. She owned a home. She'd had enough, and it was sufficient. Making the choice wasn't simple. Even her friendship with Allen suffered as a result. She felt like the villain, abandoned. She departed, and he was annoyed. However, she felt in her heart that she had made the correct decision. She didn't just leave a performance. She left a dysfunctional system behind. She also didn't recoil. When Patricia Richardson portrayed one of the worst parts of her life in 2001, her career took a dramatic change. The mother of Marilyn Monroe was severely disturbed. She played Gladys Pearl Baker in the Blonde miniseries, a character who is plagued by mental illness and barely clings to reality. Patricia gave a powerful, honest, and really unnerving performance. Her portrayal of the characteristics of bipolar illness and borderline personality was lauded by critics and psychologists. Although the plot was imaginary, her portrayal added a terrifying degree of realism. Those who had only seen her in comedic roles were taken aback. She was more than simply the mom from the show. With a single glance, the actress could evoke feelings of distress or even heartbreak. Despite the shortcomings of the miniseries, her performance left a lasting impression on all viewers. She did something entirely different and as bold that same year. Viva! Patricia had 2 roles in Lost Nowhere. She became Helen Wanda, twins. Patricia has the opportunity to demonstrate the extent of her acting abilities in this strangely charming criminal comedy. She gave each sister the impression that she was a unique individual with feelings, peculiarities, and imperfections. It was more than a ploy. She gave the impression that the audience was witnessing 2 completely different ladies. She held her own in a plot filled of deceit, dark comedy, and small-town mayhem while playing alongside James Caan and Daniel Stern. She gained more respect from critics who saw a different side of her, and the picture made waves at film festivals, despite not having a big distribution. However, Patricia had previously demonstrated her ability to handle intense drama in 1997, long before these roles. She portrayed Connie, a nurse in Yuli's Gold. He gradually forges a shaky relationship with Peter Fonda's character, a bereaved, solitary beekeeper. Her acting was equally subdued as the film, which was silent and reflective. There was honest delivery of genuine emotion without any exaggerated theatrics. She was nominated for Best Supporting Female at the Independent Spirit Awards for her portrayal, which is significant for any performer from the comedy industry. The movie itself was an unexpected success and even contributed to Peter Fonda's comeback. Patricia, however, was more than a supporting character. She contributed to the film's emotional impact, demonstrating once more her ability to go above and beyond what was required of her. She returned to television after making waves in the film industry. However, she ventured into the realm of political drama this time. She portrayed Sheila Brooks, a composed although stern campaign assistant to a Republican senator vying for president, in The West Wing. She added a calm power to the part without being ostentatious or loud. When anything seemed wrong, her character didn't hesitate to voice it, even if it meant leaving the campaign. She also persuaded the senator to forgo his political aspirations in favor of something greater and a different method of serving his nation in one of her last moments on the show. These scenes demonstrated Patricia's progress. In a room packed of influential people, she could maintain her position with composed authority rather than with lengthy remarks. At the height of her success, Patricia Richardson appeared to have it all. On Home Improvement, she was viewed by millions as the ideal TV mother. Behind the scenes, however, her true family was disintegrating. Her marriage to Ray Baker, an actor, was disintegrating after 13 years. It wasn't abrupt. To make it work, they had sought treatment for more than half of their marriage. However, they secretly parted ways in June 1994. She submitted a divorce petition 2 months later. It couldn't have come at a worse time. Although her personal life was collapsing, her work was flourishing. For the children, it was made much more difficult by the maturity with which they handled it. They sought advice from a therapist who specialized in divorce-related counseling for children. At the time, their 3 children, Joseph, Roxanne, and Henry, were just 5 and 11 years old. Ray and Patricia didn't want their breakup to become unpleasant. It still stung. Later on, Ray acknowledged how difficult it was to see his wife's celebrity soar. "I can't keep up with her, and it's difficult." Patricia's inner turmoil increased along with her notoriety. She declined a $1 million per episode offer in 1999 in order to return for a 9th season of Home Improvement. She took everyone by surprise. But it was easy for her. She couldn't bear to be separated from her children any longer. As a single mother, she was exhausted from the long hours of the program and her writing duties. She put her kids before the limelight. She declined other roles besides that one. She turned down another offer for a program that would go on to win 30 Emmys. She took a whole 4-year hiatus from performing after completing Strong Medicine and The West Wing. By that time, she was juggling menopause, 3 adolescents, and the heartbreaking loss of both parents. "I basically destroyed my career," she later said, but she never expressed regret. Nothing affected her more than the death of her father in 2005. Beyond being a father, Lawrence Richardson was more. He was an accomplished musician, a shrewd businessman, and a distinguished soldier. Next followed progressive supranuclear palsy, a slow and painful illness. It kept his intellect uncomfortably aware, but it took away his capacity to swallow, move, and talk. They initially assumed it was simply mood swings or arthritis. However, things worsened following his heart surgery. He didn't say much. Even if he was sleeping, Patricia would go from Los Angeles to Virginia simply to sit with him. She would gaze into his eyes, wondering whether he was still able to identify her. "It was really difficult to tell at times," she remarked. "Was I someone he knew? What was he contemplating?" Patricia didn't back down. After he was dead, she made meaning out of her suffering. she joined Cura PSP and served on their board, becoming the national spokesperson for PSP awareness. She relentlessly worked from 2005 to 2015, soliciting money, educating people about uncommon diseases that most people had never heard of, and translating medical jargon into everyday language. She was no longer only doing it for her father. Thousands of rare illness groups are supported by NORD, which she joined. Patricia was aware of how isolating it may be when no one can relate to your situation. Her work raised awareness of therapies, such as the potential of large dosages of CoQ10 to reduce PSP symptoms. Her 10 years of activism created a lasting impression even after she stepped down in 2015, demonstrating that her most significant contribution wasn't on TV, it was the one she actually portrayed. Patricia Richardson's appearance on Last Man Standing in 2015 was more than a cameo. Fans had been waiting 16 years to witness that moment. Patricia and Tim Allen are back on the same screen, but there was a complex past hidden beneath their happy reunion. Since the conclusion of Home Improvement in 1999, Richardson has not been in a sitcom. Furthermore, this return wasn't arbitrary. Allen waited for the authors to create a character that would be a great fit for her. Someone like the old days, noisy and tool-obsessed. Later on, Richardson acknowledged that she and Allen were no longer close. However, she felt completely at home during filming. There were several of the same crew members. John Paskin, the director, was the same. Allen appeared content, and despite the fact that their previous relationship had not quite returned, they still had a quiet respect for one another. But what about a complete overhaul of your home? Richardson was unreserved. She shot it down hard in 2024. Her frank explanation: her oldest son Brad, played by Zachary Ty Bryan, was a convicted criminal. She mentioned robbery, assault, and domestic abuse. There were other challenges as well. Years ago, Tara Noah Smith gave up acting. Jonathan Taylor Thomas had positioned himself behind the camera and had no intention of returning. Wilson's actor, Earl Hindman, passed away in 2003. Furthermore, Richardson said that without ever speaking to her or Thomas, Tim Allen had informed the media that everyone was on board. To be sure, she gave Thomas a call herself. That was the last straw. "We did it," she said. "We performed it effectively, and it ought to remain exactly how it is." Richardson was even more troubled by how home renovation had been marginalized in popular culture. Even if it used to have the highest ratings, Home Improvement hardly received any attention, whereas Friends and Seinfeld were continuously praised. She didn't mince words when she was interviewed in 2024. She said that Tim Allen's politics, conservative beliefs, and Republican Party backing were the main reasons why Hollywood despises our show. Richardson was certain that was the reason the program was left off the best-of lists and retrospectives. She even acknowledged that she had personal problems with the show's writing. In her opinion, it wasn't a compliment when it seemed like it was becoming Full House. She nonetheless supported the job they accomplished in spite of her critiques. "What anyone says doesn't matter to me," she declared. "I'm proud of the legacy." Few celebrities would have chosen Richardson's decision after the program. She departed from Hollywood. Even though she was still in great demand, she wanted to raise her children and avoid the limelight. Her family was more important than the 4 Emmys and 2 Golden Globes she had received nominations for. She returned once her youngest left for college, but not to sitcoms or glitzy red carpets. Then she returned to the theater, where her passion for performing began. She returned to the East and resumed her live performances. She featured in I Forgive You, Ronald Reagan, an off-Broadway drama on the aftermath of the Reagan period air traffic controller strike, in 2013. A vast way from comedy life, it was a political drama. For Richardson, however, it was like home. In the same year she thought back on how her career had begun, understudying with Angela Lansbury, earning her equity card from Arthur Lawrence, and trying out for Gypsy in New York. Years later, she was back on stage doing what she really loved, even if she never got to play her first part.